Or ABC 10 News at 5 starts right now.
A young woman in San Diego testing positive for the same coronavirus variant that's fueling a surge in India. What we know about it and what this means for the vaccines. Plus,
how could you hit a human being and then leave them to die bleeding out in the street?
A woman speaking from her hospital bed after being hit by a driver who then just took off. The desperate plea she's making for a break in the case.
And an emotional sight at the San Ysidro border. Watch as a mother and son who were separated by President Trump's immigration policy are reunited.
ABC 10 News at 5 starts now.
The first case of the coronavirus variant fueling a devastating outbreak in India has now been detected in San Diego County. Good evening. I'm Lindsay Pena.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. The infected person traveled from India to San Diego and had to be treated in the hospital. Our ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl is going in depth on what we're learning about the variant some call the double mutant.
Record-breaking COVID cases in India have left hospitals overwhelmed and patients desperate for care. India recorded nearly half of all the infections worldwide last week, and experts think part of the reason is the B.1.617 variant. County health officials now say a woman in her 20s was hospitalized here in San Diego with that variant. She had traveled from India to San Diego in late March and wound up in the hospital in early April. She was not vaccinated, and she was released from the hospital after less than a week.
We've only detected a handful of cases in the state, one in San Diego and a few in the Bay Area.
On Tuesday, the Biden administration imposed a ban on travel from India by non-citizens. The 617 variant was first found in the state of Maharashtra, and it's become the dominant lineage there. It has several mutations, but it's nicknamed the double mutant because it has two important mutations on the part of the virus that attaches to cells.
We don't know what the combination of those two mean. At the minimum, it's going to mean that it's more transmissible.
UC San Francisco's Dr. Peter Chinhong says one of the mutations in the India variant is similar to one found in the South Africa and Brazil variants, a mutation that seems to make those more elusive. But a small study in India recently looked at blood samples in a petri dish from a few dozen people, and it found antibodies produced by the Novavax vaccine did neutralize the 617 variant. Dr. Chinhong says that bodes well for the vaccines available in the U.S.
If the Indian variant came in November or December of 2020 in California, it would be a different scenario than now because we have a lot of people protected both from natural immunity and from vaccine-induced immunity.
He says India is at much greater risk from the variant than we are because just 2.1% of India's population is vaccinated. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
This afternoon, a county spokesperson told ABC 10 News they identified one person who was in close contact with the case here in San Diego. That person did not develop symptoms. Here are the latest numbers on coronavirus in San Diego County. 219 new cases were reported today. That brings our total to more than 277,000. There were 3 new deaths, bringing that total to 3,716. And CVS is now accepting walk-ins for the COVID-19 vaccine. That means no appointments will be required. The chain is also offering same-day scheduling with appointments available within an hour of signing up. CVS has more than 1,100 locations in California. As of today, CVS says it has administered more than 17 million COVID-19 vaccine doses across the U.S.
Governor Gavin Newsom won the latest court challenge to his use of emergency powers during the pandemic. 2 Republican state assembly members had sued. They say Newsom's numerous executive orders are unconstitutional. A lower court judge had agreed, but today the Court of Appeals overturned that and sided with Newsom. The assembly members say they will appeal to the state Supreme Court. And a federal judge says the CDC overstepped its authority when it imposed a nationwide eviction ban. It was put in place to help keep cash-strapped renters in their homes during the pandemic. The judge vacated that freeze. The ruling was a win for property owners, landlords, and realtors. The moratorium was first enacted under former President Trump and later extended through June. It's unclear what will happen now. And President Biden is laying out how the American Rescue Plan passed by Congress will help small businesses.
Businesses that get grants can use it to cover payroll, rent, utilities, supplies.
The president says that plan is already working because it's helping people financially and also speeding up vaccinations. President Biden is also touting his new infrastructure plan, saying it's critical for our economy and growing jobs. Republican leaders say they will not support the president's push to raise taxes on corporations to pay for the plan.
100% of my focus is on standing up to this administration.
President Biden says he'll meet with Republicans to negotiate when Congress returns next week. And you can follow any developments surrounding the pandemic by downloading our free mobile app. Just go to the App Store and search 10 News.
New court documents reveal more about the boat captain in that apparent deadly human smuggling operation off the coast of Point Loma. Antonio Hurtado, a U.S. citizen, is now accused of trying to smuggle 32 people into the United States. A woman and 2 men, all Mexican nationals, died. More than 24 more were rushed to the hospital. Majority were from Mexico. At least one said that he was from Guatemala. Investigators say that most of the passengers paid between $15,000 to $18,500 to be smuggled into the country.
The smugglers really just don't care about the people they're exploiting. All they care about is lining their own pocket for profit.
Border Patrol says the agency documented a record 309 maritime smuggling events in the fiscal year of 2020. Hurtado is also charged with assaulting an agent. Court documents say that Hurtado deliberately hit an agent in the head with his knee when they tried to detain him. Homeland Security is also looking for potential victims of this former preschool teacher. Last month, Paul Torres pleaded guilty to trading child porn online. He has worked at dozens of preschools around the county, in San Diego, Chula Vista, and most recently in Poway. He also worked in Tijuana. Investigators want anyone who has had contact with Torres to call Homeland Security's San Diego's office. Torres is scheduled to be sentenced next month.
Brokenhearted for my son. No child should have to see their parent laying bloodied in the street thinking they're dead.
From her hospital bed, that cyclist seriously injured by a hit-and-run driver made a plea for tips. Our ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chin shows us the video clues she hopes will lead to an arrest.
Just before 8 Sunday night, Holly Owen had just gotten off work and was on her bike headed to see her son at his father's house. A block from that home, she was at a four-way stop on the sidewalk on Ditmar Street, about to cross Cassidy Street.
Big black truck, and he was about half a block away approaching the stop sign. I had already been waiting, so it was my right of way. So I went.
She was nearly to the curb when she was hit.
And the next thing I know, there were just these 2 big pairs of truck headlights coming at me. Impact, flying through the air, hitting the ground, having the wind knocked out of me, and then just hearing a bunch of people shouting and then looking up, and there were a bunch of people standing over me.
Among the eventual crowd, her 11-year-old son, who ran out of his home.
No child should have to see their parent laying bloodied in the street thinking they're dead.
Owen was rushed to a hospital. The truck that struck her, long gone. Surveillance video shows a black truck headed from the scene toward the I-5 on-ramp. Witnesses say it never stopped and sped off.
It's disgusting. How could you leave a human being? How could you hit a human being and then leave them to die bleeding out in the street?
At the hospital, Owen diagnosed with a host of injuries, 2 spinal fractures, 3 broken ribs, road rash, and countless bruises. Her back fractures will require her to be in a body cast for 6 weeks as she begins her recovery and appeal for tips from her hospital bed.
I want people to turn him in or himself to turn himself in. I want justice. I could have died.
Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
Oceanside police believe the truck is a black Dodge Ram lifted pickup. In the meantime, a GoFundMe campaign has been set up to help with Owen's expenses. There is a link on our homepage at 10news.com.
Firefighters in Santee made quick work of a brush fire near the San Diego River that broke out this afternoon and burned about 4 acres. Crews from the air and the ground were able to knock down the flames. The cause is under investigation, but investigators say there are homeless camps in that area. Now to a 10 News follow-up. Visitors can expect to once again walk along the OB Pier once repairs are completed. City engineers say a portion can safely reopen after railings and other parts are fixed. They say that could be done by summer. Once it reopens, there will be some restrictions due to safety. For that reason, the city says that part of the pier beyond the cafe, but before the expansion joint, will remain closed. The pier will also now be closed during very high tides. The county is beginning its annual battle against mosquitoes. This week, they'll begin doing airdrops of larvicide in dozens of waterways where insects lay eggs. The hope is to slow the spread of dangerous diseases like West Nile virus. The county usually does the drops once a month through October. They say the larvicide is not dangerous to people or pets. San Diegans can help by dumping out any standing water in or around their homes.
An emotional reunion at the San Ysidro border. A mother and a son separated by the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy saw each other today for the first time in 4 years. As ABC's Marcia Gonzalez reports, they are one of the first families brought back together by the Biden administration.
At the same port of entry where they were forcibly separated more than 3 years ago, Sandra Ortiz and her son Brian finally reunited, hugging for the first time in what to them felt like an eternity.
It feels like a dream. Like I was in the car and I was just like, this is finally happening. And I'm really going to be reunified with her after all these times.
They are one of the thousands of families torn apart under the Trump administration's policy aimed at deterring illegal immigration. Sandra, who says she fled Mexico in the face of threats from cartels, was denied asylum and deported without her son. Brian, just 15 at the time, was sent to a shelter, then to live with older siblings in California. They are now the first family to be reunited under the Biden administration, with officials saying they were left with little to no information about many of the deported parents. To this day, there are still more than 400 children whose parents have yet to be located. Advocates who took this video helped organize this reunion. Family members signed saying the wait was worth it. In that wait, a lot was missed. Birthdays, Brian's prom, and high school graduation. But with Mother's Day balloons in hand, they're now starting the first of many long-awaited celebrations.
I was talking to her on the phone and everything, but still not making sure, like seeing her in person, being able to give her a hug and everything. It was just...
Does it feel like a dream?
Yes, it actually
End of a nightmare?
does. Yes.
3 other families are also being reunited this week, with more expected in the following days. The parents returning here to the U.S. are being granted humanitarian parole, allowing them to stay here temporarily. What comes next for them is still unclear. Marcia Gonzalez, ABC News, Los Angeles.
And Vice President Kamala Harris says that she will be visiting Mexico and Guatemala on June 7th and 8th. It's all part of the Biden administration's effort to sort out the root causes of immigration.
It will come after a variety of work that we've been doing thus far, which has included now my second direct conversation with the president of Guatemala. I'm going to be talking with the president of Mexico again this week. This will be the second conversation I'll have with him.
Thank you.
That announcement was made as the vice president participated in a woman-led small business roundtable along with Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Harris also said the U.S. is still assessing its response to El Salvador's leadership, who voted to dismiss Supreme Court judges who they see as hostile to the country's president.
2 Bay Area students have been found guilty of killing an Italian police officer back in 2019. The 2 Americans were part of a drug bust gone wrong and were charged with stabbing a plainclothes officer to death. The 2 said they didn't know the plainclothes officers were police and were claiming self-defense. Both are sentenced to life in prison. Defense lawyers say they will appeal and hope to find a more reasonable judge.